Hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast with a review for Lucky Hank Episode 3 Escape. This episode was directed by Daniel Atias. It stars Bob Odenkirk as William Henry Devereaux Jr., aka Hank, Muriel Enos as Lily Devereaux, which we'll talk about in this episode a lot. I really think Lily is delivering one of the just more standout performances this episode. Cedric Gabbro as Paul Rourke, Diedrich Bader as Tony Conigola, Olivia Scott Welch as Julie Devereaux, Suzanne Cryer as Gracie Dubois, and Sarah Minnie as Meg Quigley. In this episode, Hank spirals when a storage pod full of his father's belongings is dropped up in his front yard. The professors spiral when rumors of budget cuts threaten their tenured jobs. So as you see, this episode is a lot about spiraling and how different people are dealing with those consequences. Now, of course, the professor stuff overlaps with Hank's stuff because he is still the head of the English department, and he pretty much has to make those decisions about budget cuts. Um, so I will say I'll touch on a few things. So we definitely have the main story. I'll get to probably last, but I want to talk about Muriel Enos's story, as she's the vice principal of this high school, and really you can tell she's getting no support really from anyone there. When a student has an incident, I'll just kind of leave it at that. She kind of has to deal with it herself, and like life's really not getting better for herself. So I really enjoyed seeing Eno's performance in this episode. I think being the wife of the protagonist in a show like this could really revolve everything around Hank, but the show very smartly does and kind of has their own storyline for Lily. You know, trying to deal with her job, trying to also better her own life, and also dealing with Hank and stuff like that. So their relationship, which we definitely get to towards the end of the episode. So that story was, I mean, I'm really enjoying everything that's happening on that side, and I think it'll lead to a bigger conflict towards later in the season. Next, let's talk about all the professors. Obviously, everyone here is out to pretty much save their job, right? And we're seeing some characters that we don't normally see come into action and trying to either check with the dean or work with the students, like whatever they need to do to keep their jobs here. I didn't realize the world of academia was so cutthroat, but I guess I should have been. I mean, on like anything where there's budget cuts and layoffs, and that's something that's unfortunately happening a lot in the moment. So I think it's definitely interesting to see how it affects some field that you may not be as familiar with. And like in this case, um, you know, uh, the college and academia, um, which also leads to some really fun and funny confrontations and just conversations all throughout. Like I've said this before in other reviews, the characters in this show are just really well written as far as like their quirks and how different they are and how they approach different stories. So it's really fun to see them and spend some time with them. And of course, when I do have a confrontation with Frank, um, Oscar Martinez is really really funny. Like his role in this is so well done as well, and I think it's just gonna ramp up as well as the season progresses. Um, Now let's move over to Hanks, because I think he is going through so much stuff, but it's hard to empathize because he's such a curmudgeon of a character. I think sometimes that I don't think we don't really see him be sincere, except sometimes with his wife, and especially with Diedrich Bader's character. I love the conversations that they usually have. We don't get a lot of that in this episode, unfortunately, but we do get a lot of Bob Odenkirk interacting with Sarah Mini. Meg is a professor, an adjunct professor, so their job is even less safe than any tenure professor as these budget cuts happen. And then also, Hank projects a lot of his own insecurities onto her. They have a really interesting relationship, which I won't go too much into detail, but every scene with them in this episode was so much fun to watch. Like I said in the last review, Amini's just so charismatic, and she brings something very different to the show that plays really well with Odenkirk's character, because they're very different, but they both have such a really interesting relationship with their work, with their goals and what they're trying to do. And of course, they all kind of want something or need something from each other, whether it's just somebody to listen to, or a recommendation, for a letter of recommendation, which is what Meg is kind of looking for from Hank to become a full-time tenure professor. But in a college that is going to experience possible cuts, like that's not even an option. So we also see Meg's character, whose mom also works at the college, going through some harsh stuff as well, which is kind of what prompts them to come together for the sequence of scenes. So yeah, overall, this was another really fun episode, really interesting. There's a really funny sequence with Hank getting stuck in his garage because of that moving pod, those big storage pods that just um, kind of a ass move of the guy to just kind of drop it off there, blocking everything. It's like, oh, that just as a person just really pissed me off on behalf of Hank. So, and then like I said, the last scene of the episode is probably where we get the most sincere, because Hank, say what you will, he's not a liar. He's pretty upfront. He's pretty honest, even though his inner dialogue definitely does think about being more deceitful, or maybe trying to be a little more shady about everything he's doing. He doesn't do that in reality. So I think, the comparison between his inner monologue and what Hank's actions actually are, that's what you judge somebody based on, right? What they actually do. What they're thinking, maybe, sure, but we don't always have insight to what a person's thinking, which in this case is the audience, we do. So that part's really interesting. But yeah, the scenes also with Muriel Enos and Bob Odenkirk, once again, just really good stuff. They have such chemistry on the screen. Um, and yeah, another, like I said, another fantastic episode. Really fun to watch. I'm glad I get to see these a little earlier, because there's some other stuff, like WrestleMania and Succession, that happens on a Sunday night. So if you don't get to watch it immediately on Sunday night, you can watch the show on AMC Plus earlier. Like, I think since Thursday, you can watch them. So it's really good to have that service if you have it available. And they have a lot of other really cool stuff, including Interview with a Vampire, which we did a full rundown of. So let me know what you thought about this issue of Lucky Hank in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here on the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone.